Thanks, Dario. All right, no pressure, the closing session. I'm actually quite impressed with all the people in the seats, so thank you for staying engaged. I will advance here. So, a little tribute to our Italian leader, Dario. I actually went to Italy with my family this past summer and was inspired by a lot of the things I saw. And most people they go to the Vatican, they see the Sistine Chapel. And I thought, mobile engagement, it speaks to me, right? I've often said for years, consumers just have this insatiable demand for interaction, right? Anytime you give consumers the ability to do something quick, they want more of it. And so I saw the Sistine Chapel and I thought, that's like the longing for connectedness, right? And so I started this thinking about the renaissance of messaging, and this is the first time I'm giving this talk, but there's a bunch of frameworks in these slides that hopefully, if anyone leaves here with a different way of thinking about the space, or a model, or just strategic, competitive, a new way of thinking about things, then that's a victory for me. So what I'm going to cover is where are we, how did we get here, what's changing, and what's next. So first of all, I spent so many years trying to get marketers to put text calls to action into their marketing, right? We're still trying to do it today, and it always proves very difficult. And the QR code was dead for a long time. By the way, if anybody wants to scan this, you'll do like a fun little two-way exchange. I'll end with artificial intelligence and AI, not to build up too much. But sometimes you need market forces to create an unlock and create a category. And so two things, obviously, I think everybody in this room knows, the scanning of QR codes from the native camera, and then really the pandemic, when every restaurant put a QR code on their menu and everybody started scanning, right? And so look at this, 83 million people scanned last year. I would have thought it was higher. And so sometimes you need market forces to create these unlocks. And so I'm not going to dive too much into CPaaS, but the explosion of the CPaaS really was an explosion of message volume. And when you think about what's at the center of all the CPaaS companies, it's SMS, right? Obviously with a lot of them trying to add channels and trying to add breadth. This data is from Nick at Mobile Squared, who was mentioned earlier today and a number of times from a white paper that he had. He's presented at MEF a number of times. And so, SMS and messaging was really at the center. And by the way, the rest of my remarks, I know there's a lot of international experience, a lot of talk about international today. I'm really focused on North America in general with Vibes. And we're routing in like 26 countries, but my remarks are going to be all about North America. And so even with this focus on SMS, consumers, when you ask, how do brands contact you, email is still the most, popular channel, for their answer. And I hate email. I think email is like, think about the percentage of spam in your inbox, of your email inbox and your SMS inbox, right? You can't even compare them. You can't even compare click-through rates, right? So SMS is just the most valuable channel. And obviously, we have to do everything we can to protect it, right? So a lot of my remarks are going to be on quality. But email's cheap, and it's about tonnage. And so I just thought this was interesting that, from the last slide being, SMS at the center of most of these CPaaSs. And then, a lot of them have added email, but email just being still what consumers think of how brands are contacting them, right? So with that as a backdrop, what I'm going to do is talk about how I view, these are just personal opinions, how I view the tech stack and how we consume mobile, how an enterprise brand consumes mobile. And this isn't going to be a Vibes commercial, but I'm going to talk about how I view the world. And so there's SaaS platforms, there's APIs. I'm going to split that middle category into really CPaaS and then what I call like enhanced engagement APIs or experience APIs. And then there's connectivity at the base. And an enterprise really wants to consume, they want all this done for them. But what I think CPaaS actually introduced was that some enterprises, they're investing in their IT staff, they've got really, robust, smart development, departments, and they want it unbundled. right? They want it to be able to consume different parts. And so as businesses, you need to be able to respond to that. And there's really been different categories. But I believe one of the renaissances here is the use cases and the volume and the sheer just arrival of the category. Now we need to think about responsibility, obviously compliance, but where do we take these use cases with AI? And how do you give enterprises the ability to unpack and use what they want in the manner they want? So my great buildup, going back to Italy for Dario, is the Italian pizza. When I think about how enterprises consume, I've got an analogy that I hope you'll like. So we take the great Italian pizza, and there's things that you manage, think of as an enterprise brand, and then there's things that are done for you, okay? And so look along the bottom of this slide. There's make at home, which is when you're doing everything yourself. There's the DiGiorno, you take it and you bake it, okay? You're buying the pizza, but you're using your own oven, right? And your own dining room chairs, and you're getting your own drinks. And then there's delivery, where they're baking it for you. And then there's where you go to a pizza shop, and everything's done for you, okay? And so, so look at this. Again, dining room table, beverages, the oven, the fire, the pizza dough, tomato sauce, toppings, cheese, everything for make at home, all right? And over on the right side of this chart, right, when you think about dine out, where everything's done for you, in a SaaS world, obviously even the dining tables and the beverages, across the top, what I'm going to do is divide the mobile ecosystem into these channels. And I thought that this would be a kind of a helpful lead-in analogy for everybody. So think of the pizza as a service. Hopefully this makes sense, what you're doing on your own versus what is done for you. And then break down mobile. And so this gets really detailed, but if you are just using aggregation, right? You've got SMPP messaging and you're accessing carrier connectivity, but you're doing all the rest on your own, right? Also keep in mind, as you move to the right on this framework, more of the compliance is done for you, right? So you have like a CPaaS, you might be doing two-factor at the, in the CPaaS vertical. And I'll go through each of these. But one thing I'll draw your attention to is in the API suite, these enhanced APIs or these experience APIs, they're more robust. They're doing more than just giving you a send and receive message API, right? When you have a send and receive message API, you have to do all the heavy lifting of business logic, targeting, segmentation, compliance management. How are you doing opt-outs? What are you doing about disconnects? All that stuff is on your plate if it's not bundled into the API or if it's not provided to you in the software as a service, right? So, again, I'm flipping the stack, and I'm going to go through these verticals pretty quickly, one by one. Okay, so aggregation. Throwback to some of the people in the, a lot of industry veterans in the audience, right? And so this is the Common Shortcode Administration website in 2010 of Tier 1 aggregators, right? And so most of these companies have been consumed or are mostly through consolidation, which is actually the focus of this next slide. So this was the last publicly available web version of the rankings of the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And we had iConnective, who I know is in the audience, but they sold some of their messaging assets to Infobip. mBlocks obviously consumed by Cinch. Mgage became Clara, Open Market, Infobip, and then SAP, Cinch. And so we've seen a lot, I've seen a lot of this happen. And then some bad actors were just sort of eliminated. We saw an investment of Twilio into Cineverse, and then our good friends at 3CI, which were bought by IMI and is now Cisco, right? And so, I'd love more transparency. Back, this website doesn't exist. I think the rumor was that some of the Tier 2s and Tier 3s complained it wasn't fair, that there was transparency about who's connected. I think that's caused more issues than benefit, but I won't focus on that. I just view our job as a Tier 1 directly connected aggregator is to control the traffic that runs through my pipes, right? And so all the aggregators need to take that seriously and put in some of the controls that I'll talk about in a little bit. Okay, so for CPaaS, again, I mentioned the explosion of CPaaS. This is an IDC chart, and I think it's really illuminating. I mean, these are some of the biggest companies in the world. You see Microsoft and AT&T and a lot of telco, heavyweights like Alcatel-Lucent and, Avaya. But up in that leader quadrant, Twilio has really put this on the map. Kudos to them. And you've got all sort of, the chasers. But again, SMS at the core and just this huge emerging market, huge emerging ecosystem. So this is data of driving this market to 14 billion by 2025. I even think that's a little low when you look at what's happened. So you could look at this chart and say, hey, that's a little old. Q2 of 21. It's not that old in the big scheme of things. And yet Twilio's revenue, publicly available information, just under 500 million a quarter. That's more than doubled, right? So they're over $1 billion a quarter, right? And that's just remarkable, right? And so again, I think this opportunity that we're all in the room for is enormous. And so it's ours to seize, capture, and it's also ours to protect. Okay. APIs and the differentiation. So I mentioned this on the left-hand side. Any traditional CPaaS or good API developer-centric providers can have great tech documentation in their developer portal. A channel API is really just the ability to what I said earlier, give someone the ability to send and receive a message. The experience APIs on the right side allow you to bundle more robust capability into the API. So like event-triggered message or incentives, right? I think subscription management is probably the most important thing when you think about compliance and you think about quality. And so do you have subscription management built into your API? Or are you giving someone a send and receive message API and then hoping that they do subscription management on their own with their own business logic, right? They're really interesting things to sort of think about from a scale standpoint. And so just to put this into an example, sorry about the headline there. This is just like a subscriber, subscribing to a database, via a website, right? And so again, is it a single API request, with all this embedded governance, right? The compliance management, the templating. What are you doing about flow? Just sort of the orchestration, like a welcome offer, and the subscription management. And you get that with robust APIs. I heard Stephanie this morning talk about APIs as sort of that next, that next area or that next sort of market, and I completely agree. So certainly bullish on deep and broad APIs. Okay. All right, and then SaaS platforms, the do it all for you. You log in, and even on the top, you've got the UI, for all your campaign management and orchestration. You've got dashboards for your analytics. This is a great, when I spent most of our time at Vibes just meeting with marketers and building out the SaaS portion of this whole, these 4 pillars, if you will. And marketers love this chart, so I'm just giving it to everybody. So this is about the x-axis is reach, right? And email has huge reach, right? So the widest on the x-axis, but it doesn't go up that high because it's not very engaging, right? Open rates are tiny, down to 1%, single-digit percents. Most of our marketers, their email open rates are below 10%. You're talking about 7, 8, 9%, right? That's terrible. It's just the ineffective medium. But it still works, right? So does direct mail. Everybody here might not, look and buy from the catalog, but you get it because guess what? 1% of the people are actually making a purchase from that direct mail catalog, right? So anyway, email is not going to go away. And then at the top, you have super engaged people, but not a lot of reach, right? Which is your app. You talk to a marketer, and they're finally coming around to like the app's not for everybody. And they think, it's just, they've been this myopic mindset that like everything has to go to the app. And now it's like, oh man, we're really seeing diminishing returns on our investment to drive more downloads, right? And the app's not going to go away. The app's freaking amazing, like you see the stars drop in your cup at Starbucks and all the bells and whistles. That's really great. And that's your most engaged, and it's your best customers. But there's that big gap, right? And so that's where messaging, can fill that gap. Messaging and Wallet. If anybody did that QR code, you'd see what we're doing with Wallet, but I'm not going to talk much about that. So anyway, this is just a great framework to show the importance of these other channels, because email's not doing enough and the app's not doing enough. And it's not about not doing those, it's just about doing more, right? The consumer's fragmented. CMOs need to be in more places. They have to have a presence. They have to have a Twitter strategy. They have to have a Snapchat, strategy. What are they doing now with TikTok? They have to be everywhere, right, to get those fragmenting audiences. Okay, and so look, you have a convoluted system, but you have some of these big marketers connecting through different folks. You have everybody trying to go north. Everybody wants to go more into SaaS, higher margin, get rid of the race to the bottom. Everybody has the same margin compression problems. And so what you're seeing, at least from our view, is like this just focus on quality, focus on enterprise, be responsible for our domain, and hopefully others follow. One just big fun prediction as I get into AI is that with this whole theme of API sophistication, as AI is going to add a whole new layer to this, right? And I love quadrants. David Diggs knows I love quadrants. So that's a quadrant. Previous slide was a quadrant. Here's a quadrant. This quadrant is about the better you are at APIs and embedding AI, which I'll talk about in a second, and how big or how high quality your developer ecosystem is. The combo of that is just a huge, huge unlock, in my opinion. So think about the use cases that'll flourish, right? All this artificial intelligence, machine learning, and you combine that with just tons of really smart people who you give access to. That's going to be a huge opportunity, but then one that needs to be controlled, right? So back to our compliance message. Okay. I'm cruising through this. I'm going fast, so you can get questions ready. All right, and so what's new? Provisioning, management, and compliance. We're sort of creating a vernacular, like PMC, we call it. I want to draw your attention to the fourth one, because I've been talking a lot about AI. So the fourth bullet here is just artificial intelligence, machine learning-based monitoring and filtering. So I'll show you some examples in a second, but one thing that we saw with one customer, I'll just tell you, is a retail pharmacy customer, where we started analyzing the traffic of responses, right? So a lot of the messaging that's done A2P is one way. I'd love it if we could just get them all into two-way conversations, right? That's part of this big renaissance, in my opinion, is the ability to make these things two-way. And so we're analyzing the traffic just to sort of try and show the customer what they were sitting on top of. And we have this word clouds of words that were, in the text of the response. The bigger the word, the more it appeared. And ironically, we're here in Florida. We saw the word Florida. And so we dug into these messages, and it was snowbirds getting their prescription fulfillment alert, right? That would say, and they would reply with, hey, can you send this to my pharmacy in Florida? Hey, can you send this to me down in Florida? Can you send this to this address? And that would be a Florida address. And we were like, holy shit, like that's pretty powerful, because there should be a response, absolutely. And we've got the address, thank you. Meanwhile, these were all getting a response, thank you, we don't understand your message, right? So huge opportunity in two-way, just by doing some AI across all the, what's the intent of the subscriber. Okay, I wasn't going to put this in, but I decided to. This is last week's Wall Street Journal, and this is them saying, U.S. regulators saying, spam texts are out of control in the U.S. This pisses me off, right? I think the carriers in the U.S. have done a remarkable job compared to other regions and other countries. There's been really a move away from SMS as a medium in a lot of countries where it's too expensive or spam's just out of control. And so, I guess beyond just the compliment is like it's never over. We have to keep doing a better job, and protecting the just specifically the messaging ecosystem is good for everybody in the room. But it's also just this pristine channel, right? And so like, you know you're going to get a response. When you text someone, you sit there for 20 seconds and wait because you know they got it, right? That's power. And I think it was, my kids think it was Spider-Man who said, with great power comes great responsibility. It's actually Voltaire. With great power comes great responsibility. And so everybody can scan that, read that article. Everybody in this room should be aware. We don't want the regulators coming and putting more governance because they don't understand. My CFOs testified, on behalf of the industry at the FCC with a little microphone twice. And, with everybody in the big U-shaped circle, they don't understand the space. The space is complicated. And so, let's govern our own rules and work with the carriers to make sure it's successful. I love this analogy, so I just wanted to put this in here. This used to be about, I used to give this as an analogy about throughput, right? So long codes are like the bike lane, and short codes are like the bus lane. You want enterprise, you want high traffic, you want dependability, you got to get an enterprise short code. And so most of our customers are big enterprise, and so we do mostly short code. But it's also about compliance, right? And the analogy is anybody can get a bike, hop on it, and go disobey the rules. Everybody's been behind a biker that's like going into the driving lane, you get all pissed off, or like the bike messenger in Manhattan or whatever. But to get a car, you got to have a license, and to drive a bus, you need a special license, right? And so again, it's like more responsibility, and so it's like a higher bar. And so again, I think just the bike lane, bus lane is a good metaphor, and I think it applies to quality and compliance as well. Okay, so just some examples of AI. So this was Black Friday, and somebody somewhere said that 10 a.m. was like the best time to send a message. I don't think that was based on any data, but our big marketing clients set their own campaigns, like through orchestration, they set their own times. And this is the first time we saw something like this, where most of the messages were sent in the morning, but the highest click-through rate was actually in the afternoon. So what does that tell you? You should be sending those messages in the afternoon when they're most effective. And so these are really simple things that will get solved by AI, right? Because in a platform, you can just present the optimal time that you should be sending that particular message to whatever particular segment. And to give you a real example, we work with a children's brand, and after years of working with them, we kind of found out that the highest click-through rate was actually between 7 and 8 p.m., right? You want to send messages after 8, but if you send between 7 and 8, and so we were thinking about that, and it's like, oh, this is really interesting because being a mom all day is really hard, right? I've got 4 kids, and it's hard for me, but harder on my wife, harder for the moms. And so, at 7 p.m., if those young kids are down, what's mom doing then? She's on her phone and she's shopping, right? And so those messages don't get clicked on, earlier in the day. There's little things like that with AI you can fine-tune to optimize outcomes, right? And that's what it's about. It's really about right message, right person, right time. And I feel like we're further along that continuum than we've ever been, right? The industry can't be about tonnage. It just can't be about, bulk and just get as much through the pipe as you can. And so AI is going to blow everything out of the water. It's a moment. This is the Renaissance, right? And then I want to comment on this because this looks like old data. My prediction is that after Zuck admits that the metaverse was a complete distraction, he's going to come back to messaging, right? Because when you look at these headlines, our biggest competitor by far is iMessage. That's interesting, right? And then Zuck plans to integrate WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook Messenger. 3 huge platforms. Hasn't really happened yet. There's been some starts. But my thesis here is that messaging is the center of the universe, right? And what Facebook was seeing is that in China, everybody spends all day in WeChat, and you can do everything inside of WeChat, right? And so it's man, we'll bring together Facebook Messenger and Instagram and WhatsApp, and then we've got time. And remember, Facebook is an intention based business model, right? And so they need that time. So I think everybody thought he was crazy buying, WhatsApp for $19 billion when it had no revenue, but I think it looks pretty smart now. Same thing, I think they bought Instagram for $1 billion, and now it's delivering just insane revenue. So I think this, will come back. And, if we don't solve, specifically in North America, that headline and things get out of control, this is what takes over, right? And this is happening globally because messaging is so powerful, right? So I'm a big believer in messaging through any channel, right? Because I think that goes back to what I opened with, the consumer's insatiable demand for engagement and interaction. But, this is to show, like, again, WeChat, 1.3 billion users per month, WhatsApp, 2 billion. Like, messaging is the core. Messaging is the thing that, at least in North America, we need to protect, or you hand it over to, these over-the-top, messaging providers, which makes everybody in the ecosystem, just makes everybody's job a little bit more difficult because there's different rules everywhere. So I'll leave you with the AI opportunity is ours to sort of leverage and transform business. And these large language models, there's going to be a few of them, but GPT-4 has all the rage. It's really worth getting on site and just experimenting with it. It's really fun. It's really fun to do with your kids if you haven't done that. Just think, I mentioned a few examples, but the way that it's going to help solve consumer problems and just enhance experiences, I think it will be very, very dramatic and could be very, very good and powerful for our ecosystem. So if anybody wants to contact me anytime, you can email me. Thank you. Oh, we're going to, questions? Sorry.
Jack, I just more of a comment. I think you listed Cisco IMI as a tier 3 or 4.
That was old data.
Okay.
I was waiting for one of you to say something.
We would love to see the source of that because we're actually a tier 1.
Wouldn't it be great if there was a publicly available site to see that? Any other questions? Nope.
Any questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jack. Thanks.